She said she could feel it, but what she felt was her own betrayal echoing back, a mirror she couldn't look into without blaming me. I'm Ethan, 30, and one night I walked into my apartment after the gym. Sweat still drying on my shirt, muscles trembling from deadlifts, earbuds dangling around my neck. The air felt thick. Hannah, my fiancée of 3 years, sat at the kitchen table like a statue carved from resentment. Wine glass untouched, phone face down, eyes sharp enough to cut through concrete. "We need to talk," she said. Those 4 words are never followed by good news. "About what?" Her jaw clenched. "About your affair." I laughed. Reflex. Nervous. Wrong move. Her face cracked open like glass under pressure. "You think this is funny? I can feel it. A woman just knows when her man is cheating." Then the confession spilled. She'd been following me, scrolling through my messages while I slept, even sent her friend Chloe to test me at the gym. Chloe had leaned on the treadmill next to mine, smiling too long, asking too many questions. I'd brushed it off. Apparently, that made me guiltier. The truth? I wasn't hiding a woman. I was fighting genetics. My doctor had warned me that my cholesterol was a ticking time bomb, 1 bad year away from a heart attack like my dad's at 54. Her response wasn't worry. It was fury. "You should have told me," she snapped. "Not are you okay? Not I'm glad you're trying." Just rage that I hadn't included her in my own survival. It was the first time I realized Hannah didn't want a partner. She wanted control dressed as concern. I reminded her that I did tell her 3 months ago over takeout and Netflix when my doctor's warnings were still fresh and terrifying. She'd shrugged, said I was being dramatic, and ordered bacon cheeseburgers. Now, she was screaming like I'd betrayed her personally by trying not to die. "Where are you going?" she demanded, blocking the doorway. "To my brother's." "Oh, perfect. Run away. That's not suspicious at all." Her voice cracked in that way that makes neighbors turn down their TVs just to eavesdrop. I started throwing a few things into my gym bag. Charger, spare clothes, toothbrush. She kept talking about wasted time, ungrateful men, how she'd sacrificed her best years for me. Every sentence was a different accusation, but the melody was the same. "You made me look stupid." I didn't argue. There's no logic when someone's building a case out of emotion. I zipped the bag and walked past her. The silence between us was so tight it felt like a vacuum. That night I showed up at Luke's place. He opened the door, saw my face, and didn't need to ask. "Guest room's yours, man," he said, stepping aside. That's my brother, allergic to drama, fluent in understatement. I crashed on his couch first, staring at the ceiling fan while the adrenaline faded. The quiet felt unnatural after weeks of suspicion and slammed doors. Somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m., I caught myself scrolling through old photos of Hannah and me. Us at the lake, at her cousin's wedding, smiling like people who hadn't yet learned each other's breaking points. I didn't feel sad, just hollow. The next morning, my phone was vibrating like a trapped insect. Notifications stacked on top of each other. Hannah had gone public. Instagram stories, crying selfies, captions like, "After everything I did for him," and "You think you know someone." Chloe, the test friend, was already in the comments, typing "men are trash," like she'd been waiting her whole life for the opportunity. Mutual friends started texting. "Bro, what happened? Did you cheat on Hannah? She's posting some heavy stuff." One even wrote, "Please tell me this is fake drama for her followers." I stared at the screen until it blurred. Then I powered the phone off and tossed it onto the nightstand. Luke made coffee and didn't ask questions, which was the best gift he could have given me. We sat in silence, the kind that doesn't need words. He finally said, "You look like a man who just stepped out of a burning house." "Yeah," I said. "And she's the one calling the fire department, saying I lit the match." By noon, Hannah's posts had gathered sympathy like flies. Her follower count was growing. People were sending her DMs full of heart emojis and "you deserve better" messages. I could almost hear her voice reading them aloud, milking the validation. That's when I realized this wasn't heartbreak. It was performance. A digital pity party where I was the villain she needed for engagement. Part of me wanted to defend myself, to post screenshots to expose the truth. But that's the trap. The second you respond, you're playing her game. So I didn't. I stayed quiet, went for a run, bought a burner journal from the gas station and started writing everything down. Every word she'd said, every detail she'd twisted. By evening, she'd blocked me. Not just on Instagram, but everywhere, phone, email, even Spotify. The modern version of setting someone's picture on fire. That's when I knew this wasn't just paranoia. This was strategy. She'd already built the stage, cast herself as the heartbroken heroine, and now she was cutting me out of the narrative entirely. I had no voice in her story. Not yet, but I was taking notes. 3 days of silence. Then, a text. Let's talk. No fighting. Please. Short, almost gentle. It looked like remorse, but I'd learned that with Hannah. Softness was usually camouflage. Still, curiosity or maybe decency won. I agreed. We met at a cafe downtown, one of those places with Edison bulbs, reclaimed wood, and overpriced pour-overs that come with attitude. I was early, nursing a black coffee, trying to steady my nerves. When she walked in, I noticed first the smile. Polite, brittle, then the person behind her. Chloe. Seriously, I said. Hannah tilted her head. I needed emotional support, because apparently confrontation was now a group activity. They sat across from me, Chloe already crossing her arms like she was prepping for cross-examination. The air thickened. Hannah started first. You've changed, Ethan. You're distant, secretive. You barely talk to me anymore. I said nothing, just sipped my coffee. Chloe chimed in. She's right. You've been acting weird. Too happy lately. Like someone with a secret. That one stung a little. I had been happier lately. Running, sleeping better, eating like an adult for once. I'd been building something quiet inside myself. Peace. Apparently that's suspicious now. I slid my phone across the table, opened to an email from my doctor. High LDL cholesterol. Recommend diet and exercise changes. Follow up in 6 months. Hannah scanned it, lips tight. Chloe leaned over, reading too slowly, like she thought she'd catch me photoshopping words mid-sentence. So I'm supposed to believe that? Hannah hissed. I leaned back. You asked for the truth. That's it. No secret woman, no affair. Just me trying not to die young. Her eyes filled with tears. Not sadness, but frustration. You made me feel crazy, she said. You are making me crazy. Maybe, I said softly. But I'm not cheating on you. That's when Chloe muttered. People don't just change overnight, Ethan. It's not normal. I stood up. You're right. It's not normal. It's growth. I looked at Hannah. We're done. She shot up from her chair, knocking her cup over, coffee splattering across the reclaimed wood table. If you walk out, it's over, she shouted, loud enough to make the barista freeze mid-pour. Good, I said. Then I walked out, the door chiming behind me, her voice still echoing. I drove straight to Luke's again, didn't even turn on the radio. Just silence and city lights blurring past. That drive felt final, like the last few pages of a chapter one didn't realize I'd been stuck in for years. The next morning, I went back to the apartment to grab my stuff. The key didn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. Hannah had changed the locks. I texted her. Did you change the locks? She replied instantly. You scared me. I told the landlord you threatened me. He helped me move your stuff into storage. Threatened her? I'd barely raised my voice. I stood there in the hallway, bag slung over my shoulder, heart pounding. She'd just rewritten the story again, this time with me as the aggressor. I called the landlord, trying to stay calm. She said what? I asked. He sighed, uncomfortable. She seemed really upset, man. Said you were volatile. I didn't want to get in the middle of it, so I helped her put your things in a storage unit. She has the key. Of course she did. Luke drove over that night with pizza and beer. You're handling this way too calmly, he said. What's the alternative? I asked. Scream until she calls the cops? He chewed thoughtfully. You think she will? She already told people I threatened her, I said. Next step's obvious. And I realized he was right. Hannah wasn't acting out of heartbreak anymore. This was a campaign. A slow, deliberate erosion of my reputation, piece by piece. I tried calling her once more, just to make it simple. Straight to voicemail. Her message played. Hey, it's Hannah. If this is Ethan, stop calling me. That one stung more than I expected. The next morning, I found out she'd blocked me everywhere again. Mutual friends texted vague things like, maybe give her space. Chloe posted something on her story about emotional abuse disguised as calmness. I wanted to rage. Instead, I took a deep breath, pulled out my journal, and wrote, she's building a trap. Don't walk into it. Then I closed it. Because if there's one thing I'd learned, it's that silence can be the loudest defense. I finally broke my silence and called her. Where are my things? Her tone was light, almost cheerful. In a storage unit on 5th Street. I even paid for the first month. You're welcome. You had no right to touch my property. I had every right, she snapped. I didn't feel safe with you around. Safe. The word hit like a slap. She was rewriting reality again, painting herself as the victim in a story that had never happened. My cousin Nate, who works in law, told me exactly what to do. Don't argue, he said. Just document everything. Texts, photos, timestamps, all of it. She's building a case, even if it's nonsense. So I documented. The storage unit was half the size of my living room, and the moment I opened the door, I knew it wasn't carelessness. It was revenge. My clothes were stuffed into garbage bags. My electronics piled like trash. My grandfather's watches, the ones he'd collected after the war, were scratched, tangled in a nest of extension cords, and covered in what looked like dirt from the soles of her shoes. There's a special kind of anger that doesn't explode. It just burns cold. I stood there for a full minute, letting the silence soak in. Luke helped me load everything into a rental truck. She did this on purpose, he said, picking up a shattered photo frame. I know, I said, and I'm not giving her the satisfaction of reacting. Halfway through loading, my phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. You're stealing community property. I have witnesses. Community property. We weren't even married. I stared at the message, almost laughed. The gall of it. When I got back to Luke's, I laid everything out in the garage and started cataloging the damage like an insurance adjuster. Photos of scratches, timestamps, videos. Every item she touched now existed twice, once in real life and once as evidence. Nate stopped by that evening to look through it all. She's escalating, he said. This isn't about stuff. It's about leverage. Leverage for what? To get you to react. To make you look unstable. Once you take the bait, she can spin the story however she wants. He was right again. 3 days later, I got an envelope in the mail, thick, but printed on cheap paper. Inside was a legal notice from something called Miller and Associates Family Representation. The font looked like it came from a high school debate club. The letter claimed Hannah was suing me for $21,000 in damages. Back rent, emotional distress, and my favorite, breach of promise to marry. Nate laughed so hard he actually spilled his coffee. That law was repealed in the 90s, he said, flipping through the pages. And even when it existed, it was about broken engagements with evidence of fraud. This is just noise. Still, seeing it in print, my name under defendant, made my stomach twist. There it was in black and white, her final attempt to own me, to keep me orbiting around her chaos. I called the number on the letter. It rang twice before a voice answered, nervous, young, clearly not a real attorney. Miller and Associates? This is Ethan Reed, I said evenly. I received a claim from your office. A pause. Oh, right. Let me check. Papers shuffled in the background. Yeah, so, Ms. Graham. Her name is Hannah. Right, Ms. Graham, she's claiming. I know what she's claiming, I interrupted. And I know breach of promise lawsuits were abolished 30 years ago. I'm just calling to confirm whether this is a real law office or a hobby project. Silence. Then click. I sat there for a second, staring at my phone. Then I started laughing. Not the angry, bitter kind, real laughter. For the first time in months. It was over. She'd run out of real weapons and was throwing paper airplanes at a fortress. That night, I opened my journal again and wrote, "You don't need revenge on someone who's already collapsing under their own lies. You just need to step out of the blast radius." I'd been living inside her storm for so long, I'd forgotten what calm even sounded like. Now, standing in Luke's quiet garage surrounded by dented boxes and broken memories, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. What I felt was relief. I wasn't her partner. I'd been her project. Something to mold, control, and punish when it didn't behave right. And now that she'd lost control, she was burning the evidence. But I was done being flammable. Hannah wasn't finished. Not even close. When I tried to officially end the lease, she refused to sign the release paperwork unless I paid her half of the security deposit. I told her calmly, "You broke the lease, you changed the locks, and you trashed my things. I'm not paying you anything." She hung up without a word. 10 minutes later, her mother called. "You left my daughter with nowhere to live," she shouted before I could even say hello. "She did that to herself," I said evenly. "You're cruel, Ethan. Cruel. After everything she's been through." "I think you mean everything she put herself through." Then came the chorus, cousins, aunts, even some guy I'd met once at a barbecue 2 years ago. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone was angry on her behalf. Each call had the same tone. Scripted outrage, like she'd handed them all the same lines. Then the real escalation hit. A detective left a voicemail. "Mr. Reed, we've received a report alleging that you stole Ms. Graham's laptop and several books. Please return the call at your earliest convenience." I sat there staring at my phone, almost impressed by her creativity. When I went down to the station, I brought everything: receipts, screenshots, even a photo of her using my laptop on our couch 6 months ago. The officer looked through it all, sighed, and said, "This is a civil issue. She's trying to bait you. Don't engage." "Not planning to," I said. Walking out of that precinct felt like walking out of her gravity field. I'd been dragged around by lies for so long that telling the truth to someone in uniform felt almost cleansing. A week later, she went public again, another social media post. A crying selfie, of course. Captioned, "He left me with nothing and stole everything. But I'm staying strong, red heart. #healing, #survivor." The comments were full of emojis, sympathy, and performative empathy. "You're so brave. Don't let toxic men win. We see you, Queen." Nate texted me a screenshot with a warning. "Stay silent. Don't feed her narrative." So I did. I didn't post. Didn't respond. Didn't defend myself. Silence became my strategy, my shield. Meanwhile, life started regrowing in small ways. Luke and I started jogging together in the mornings. I joined a cooking class. I started sleeping again. The kind of deep, unbroken sleep I hadn't had in years. Then, exactly 1 month after moving out, the landlord called. His tone was awkward, apologetic. "Ethan, I just wanted to let you know. She's gone." I blinked. "Gone?" "Yeah, Hannah moved out last night. The place is, well, it's not good. Trash everywhere. Broken dishes. The fridge is full of spoiled food. And, the wall in the bedroom. She wrote something on it in lipstick." "What does it say?" I asked. He hesitated. "It says, 'Liar.' Big letters." I closed my eyes and took a slow breath. "What's the damage?" "Lease says early termination fee, $2,400 total for both of you. Plus cleaning." "Send me the bill," I said. "Half?" "Yeah. I'll pay my $1,200. He sounded surprised. "You're really okay with that?" I smiled faintly. Peace is worth every penny. When I hung up, I felt something unexpected. Not anger, not sadness, but clarity. The storm had finally burned itself out. Hannah would keep performing, keep rewriting history to fit whatever narrative got her the most sympathy. But I wasn't in her script anymore. That night, I boxed up the last of my things from Luke's garage. My grandfather's scratched watches, my chipped mug, a few half-torn photos. Artifacts of a life that used to feel bigger than it really was. I placed them in a single drawer and closed it. That was the sound of moving on. Not a bang, not a dramatic speech, just a drawer closing softly on everything that used to matter too much. Outside, it started to rain. Luke yelled from the kitchen that dinner was ready. I stood by the window for a second, watching the city blur in the drizzle. For the first time in months, I wasn't bracing for the next hit, just breathing. And for a man who'd been living under suspicion, noise, and accusation, that simple, quiet inhale was the richest thing I'd ever owned. A week after the landlord's call, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address, no note, just my name scrawled across the front in the jagged, looping handwriting I knew too well. Inside, wrapped in a plastic sandwich bag like leftover food, was the engagement ring. The one I'd saved 3 months' salary for, the one she'd cried over when I proposed. It clinked softly against the counter when I set it down. Somehow, that sound hit harder than any of her words ever had. I stared at it for a while, the way light caught the diamond, throwing tiny sparks across my kitchen, and then I smiled. She'd mailed it back like garbage, so I treated it accordingly. Sold it the next day. The money covered my legal fees, the moving truck, and the last month's rent I owed. The rest I used to buy a one-way ticket out of Tennessee. Austin felt right. Clean slate, warmer skies, no ghosts on every street corner. 3 days after I moved, I got a message request. Chloe. Of course. She's struggling. Lost her car, her place. Maybe help her out. Blocked. A day later, a new account appeared, no profile photo, but I didn't need one to know it was her. I need $1,500 to catch up on bills. Please, Ethan. I'm sorry. The irony was almost poetic. I'd spent months being called selfish, cruel, unfeeling, and now she was asking me for compassion she'd never given. I replied once. Just once. You didn't feel my betrayal. You felt your own echoing back. Then I hit block again. And this time it felt final. The next morning, I woke before sunrise like I used to, pulled on my shoes, walked to the gym 2 blocks away. The smell of rubber mats and disinfectant hit me like memory. Same sound. Plates clanging, treadmills humming, people chasing something invisible but vital. Every rep felt heavier, not because of the weights, but because of everything I'd carried for the last year. Every drop of sweat was something leaving me. Anger, fear, that constant edge of defending myself from someone who needed me small to feel powerful. My doctor had been right. When I went in for a checkup, he looked at my chart and whistled. You've added at least 10 years to your life, he said. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I smiled. I stopped arguing. He didn't get it, but my therapist did. When I told her the whole story, the paranoia, the false claims, the manipulation disguised as love, she listened quietly, then said, her fear wasn't about losing you. It was about losing control of the version of you she created. That landed harder than I expected, because it was true. I used to think survival meant endurance, staying, forgiving, trying harder. But survival sometimes means leaving. It means walking out of a burning building before the smoke convinces you it's oxygen. Now, my mornings are simple. Black coffee, music, a run by the river before the Texas heat wakes up. Sometimes, when I pass couples holding hands, I feel a flicker of something. Not regret, not longing, just awareness. Love isn't supposed to make you smaller. It's supposed to make space for who you're becoming. Hannah couldn't do that, and I finally stopped trying to shrink to fit inside her comfort zone. There's a mirror by the door in my new apartment. I glance at it every morning before heading out, not to check my appearance, but to remind myself of something I nearly forgot. I'm still here, still alive, still free, still me. And somewhere in another city, she's probably telling someone else a story about the man who betrayed her. Maybe they'll believe it. Maybe they won't. Either way, it doesn't matter, because I know the truth. I didn't just survive a health scare. I survived her. And in the quiet between heartbeats, the silence she could never stand, I finally found peace.